Hey everyone, and welcome to this video on the best ways to immigrate to Canada as a skilled worker. My name is Josh from Joshua Shacknell Law, and I'm just going to get right into it. So this presentation is based on a blog post that I wrote a few days ago. I'll link to it in the description, but I'm going to get into the three best ways. The first one I'm going to jump right in is sponsored through a work permit. And what a lot of people don't know when they want to come to Canada, especially if they want to come work in Canada, is that in most cases you can't just get a job offer and apply for a work permit. So in most cases in general, if you want to work in Canada legally, you will need a work permit. And in most cases, even just to get a work permit, ahead of that you're going to need what's called a Labor Market Impact Assessment, an LMIA. And this is something that a company has to get, not you. So what a lot of people don't understand is that you need a company to not only give you a job offer, but be willing to sponsor you through an LMIA. Now, the reality here is that getting an LMIA takes time and is obviously an added cost to these companies, which is why many Canadian companies are hesitant to hire foreign workers. So to give you an example, the traditional LMIAs take between 3 to 6 months and cost $1,000 per employee. So that's why a lot of Canadian companies are very hesitant to sponsor you and actually get you an LMIA, because that's just extra time and work and money, which they could be spending instead on finding a Canadian that could start work technically, the next day or the next week. So because of this, Canadian companies are very hesitant, which is why it's so difficult even when you see postings online from Canadian companies that are willing to sponsor, unless you're really the cream of the crop and they're in dire need, they might be very hesitant to get your LMIA. Now that being said, if I was a worker and I wanted to come to Canada, what you would want to do is focus on some of the newer programs that make this entire process easier. So like I said, the traditional LMIA can take 3 to 6 months or even more and cost $1,000. There are newer programs, and a lot of my videos focus on the global talent stream. Because it's so much quicker than the traditional LMIA, companies are much more willing to use it. And so I'll link in the description below to my intro videos on the global talent stream if you want to learn more about it. But long story short is that you can get an LMIA through the global talent stream in as little as 7 days. Typically it's around 10 to 14 days, but this makes companies much more willing to use it. So as a worker interested in coming to Canada and knowing that you're likely going to need a company to sponsor you through an LMIA, you should focus on programs like the global talent stream. Now, most importantly, you want to make sure that you're eligible to be sponsored through the global talent stream. And so to figure that out, you have to be what's on the global talent occupations list. And I'm going to post a link to that in the description as well. Basically, in order to be eligible, you have to fit under a certain occupation. Generally, it's tech specific, so software developer, engineers, IT people, systems managers, things like that. Check the list below. But what I would say is, if you're considering your different options, in order to consider coming in through a work permit, I would say if you fall under the global talent occupations list and you're willing to put a lot of upfront effort in to try and find a job ahead of time and get sponsored, then this could be a really good option for you. Now, moving on to the second option is permanent residence through what's called Express Entry. So what Express Entry is basically, it's a new permanent residence process for skilled workers. So Canada still maintains the same permanent residence application system, but they're now offering this online portion where if you're a skilled worker and you meet the eligibility, you can apply through Express Entry. You apply completely online. All of your documents are uploaded and submitted online, and it's a much quicker process than traditional permanent residence. You can get your PR approved in sometimes as little as 3 to 6 months if you're qualified and you're quick on your feet. What's really important here is that there's no job required. So if you can get a job offer and an LMIA, it will actually help you with your Express Entry application, but you by no means need a job to apply. Now, the thing to consider is it's typically longer processing and financial cost. So what I mean by this is if you get sponsored through the Global Talent Stream, you can get your work permit, the LMI and the work permit, in as little as 3 to 4 weeks. With Express Entry, it's likely, even if you're the perfect candidate and move very quickly, it's likely going to take at the bare minimum 2 to 3 months, usually more than that. Now that being said, if you don't have a job, then that's still a pretty good timeline, especially if you need some time to make the move as well. It's also going to cost a little bit more, so the application itself, the government processing fees are going to cost you around $1,000, and that's just for you. So if you have a spouse, it'll be another $1,000. If you have dependent children, it'll be an extra few $100s. You also have to factor in other things like you'll need a medical exam, you'll have to write an English test, and those are all costs that add up, so keep that in mind. There's also more documentation required. So for a work permit application, it's fairly straightforward and simple in terms of what you need to provide, and it doesn't take too long. Express Entry is not complicated by any means, but there is lots of documentation required. You'll need a police background check, you'll need a medical exam, you'll need reference letters, you'll need proof of funds, you'll need to take an English exam. So there's more requirements and more of a cost to all of those as well, so you'll want to keep that in mind. Now that being said, if you don't think you're going to be able to find a job in Canada ahead of time, and you can get a good score, because Express Entry is a points-based system based on your CRS score. So if you can get a good score and you don't think you have a chance at getting a job, or you don't have the time to try and find a job in Canada ahead of time, then Express Entry is a really good option. And I'm going to include in the description below links to determine that there are Immigration Canada quizzes that will help you determine if you're eligible for Express Entry, and to determine what your score would be. So you can figure that out there. The last option that I've included is a study permit. Now this is more if the first two options don't work for you, or you're in a situation where you want more schooling anyways. Now this video is more targeted at skilled workers, but some people might want to go back to school, maybe get a graduate degree, or they're just looking for another way in, and the first two don't really fit with their situation. So obviously for a study permit, no job is required as well, so that's a bonus. And once you come on a study permit, it leads into then getting a work permit or PR much better once you're done your studies. So it can be kind of a good way to kind of sneak in. Not actually sneak in, but a legal way to sneak in. Now the obvious downside here is by going back to school, you're foregoing a salary and work experience, so you're going to miss out there. But it's really the trade-off, you know, are you weighing the importance of moving to Canada higher than getting work experience? So I'll leave that up to you. Now in terms of next steps, what to do with this information, I've included many links in the description below to help you learn more about each one of the options so that you can decide which is best for you. I can't tell you which one is best for you because everyone's situation is different. Please like and subscribe the video. I'm going to be putting out more content like this to help you make these kind of decisions and learn more about Canadian immigration, and all the likes and subscribes really help. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them below in the comments or reach out through my website at joshuashacknowlaw.com. I have a form that you can fill out there. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.